Welcome to the Session 1 training for From Rebel to Hope. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to lead the first session. You'll hear the wording you can use in your group, and I'll highlight a few key things that are helpful for you to understand as a facilitator. This program is written to be simple and practical. Many of the activities you see come from trauma recovery frameworks that have been used around the world, and they have been adapted in a way that fits our context and worldview. My goal is that by the end of this video, you feel confident and ready to lead session 1. It would be helpful for you to have the curriculum, the facilitator packet, and the participant packet in front of you to follow along as I walk through this session. In the curriculum packet, at the top of each session, you'll see the materials you need to bring with you. Before you begin the first session, make sure you have the 4 papers labeled Thoughts, Feelings, Body, and Actions from your facilitator packet, 1 participant packet per person, and a 2-liter Pepsi or any carbonated bottle for the illustration. You'll begin by welcoming your participants into the first session and sharing the names of you and your co-facilitator. You'll then share your Building My Why, which is found in the facilitator packet. There are a few reasons we share a why with participants. The first is to let them know that you are on equal footing with them. You're not above them as a professional therapist, but rather a person who, like them, is working through pain, seeking God's guidance, and wanting to help others do the same. The second reason is to model vulnerability. You want them to see that it is a strength to share things that happened to us and how we were affected, not a weakness. Let me give you an example of what building your why could look like through my own example. I lived in Lebanon through a revolution, through a gas and power crisis, and the Beirut port explosion in 2020 when the windows in my apartment shattered. At that time, my body seemed to handle all of that stress reasonably well, but after the 2023 earthquake, something changed. For months afterwards, I would lie down at night and suddenly feel as though my own bed was shaking, even though it wasn't. This would happen about once a week, and I didn't understand what my body was responding to. Eventually, I was able to talk with the therapist who helped me make sense of what was happening. She helped me integrate what I had felt during the earthquake into my story and into my body, and she gave me simple tools to help my body settle when those false sensations appeared. Many of those same tools are now a part of this curriculum. That experience taught me something important. Being affected by trauma does not mean I'm weak. I can be a strong person and still carry the impact of what I've lived through. God used those moments of fear and confusion to lead me toward deeper healing, formal training, and eventually a master's degree in trauma counseling. Out of my own story of hurt and fear, He helped build something I now hope can become a source of support and blessing for others. Okay, that's one example of what building your why can look like. After you share your why, you'll then go around and ask each person to introduce themselves and share something they hope to gain from this group. Since you've just modeled vulnerability with your why, this gently invites participants to open up as well. Now you'll move into the emotional awareness section. You'll begin by saying, there are some traumatic and frightening events happening around us. What are things you've experienced, heard about, or seen during this crisis? Here you give space to let people share. Let them talk about things they've seen, things like that. Then place the 4 pieces of paper in front of them and say, these events can affect us in 4 areas: our thoughts, our feelings, our bodies, and our actions. This exercise accomplishes 2 things. First, it shows that traumatic events affect people differently. Some will have strong emotions, some will feel physical symptoms, and some may feel emotionally numb as if they're having no reaction at all, which we want people to understand is also a trauma reaction. Second, it helps normalize these responses. When people feel out of control of their body's reactions, shame often follows. Shame that they're not strong enough or smart enough to prevent these reactions. Hearing others share similar experiences helps participants realize they're not alone in what they're feeling. Then you say, let's talk about how these events are affecting our thoughts. What have you been thinking? Here, you'll let people share. And then at the end, if certain things weren't shared, you could add, some examples are, will this ever end? Will I ever feel normal again? When will my life go back to the way it was? How is everyone acting like nothing is happening? Or as a facilitator, you're free to also share any thoughts you've been experiencing. Then you'll lead them into talking about how their emotions are being affected. You'll ask something like, what have you been feeling? Or what emotions are you experiencing? Let them share. Then you can add, some examples are anxiety, fear, panic, anger, mood swings, irritability, grief, hopelessness, numbness, shame, disbelief. You can add as many of these emotions as feel helpful to the group. It's also important to point out that many people may feel numb. That's a common trauma response, and during the next 4 weeks, we'll be providing tools to help people begin to recognize their emotions again. Then you can say, how is your body being affected? Again, let them share. You can add, some examples are fatigue, insomnia, difficulty sleeping, changes in appetite, loss of pleasure, tightness in your body, restlessness, jumpiness, feeling on edge. Finally, what are some ways this event has affected our behaviors? Let them share. Then you can add, some examples are withdrawing from family or friends, drinking alcohol, using drugs, constantly watching the news, constantly watching Netflix, yelling at family members, feeling out of control. Our goal is to then normalize these responses. You'll reassure them that all of these reactions are natural and normal for the body after experiencing a traumatic event. Many reactions lessen within 6 to 8 weeks, though some may last longer, sometimes up to months. This information aligns with trauma guidelines used globally and helps reduce shame by framing their experience as a normal human response to overwhelming events. You'll then continue by explaining that the next 4 weeks will give them tools to help process what's happening and begin integrating it into their story. Now you'll introduce the Pepsi bottle illustration. Okay, well, telling a story about someone experiencing stressor after stressor, you're going to shake a Pepsi bottle each time you kind of give a little part of the story. This paints a relatable picture, especially for people experiencing compounding trauma who often feel like one more thing might break me. So when you tell the story, you can choose whatever story you want, but in the curriculum, when you tell the story, you'll say something like, this man had to leave his country 10 years ago because of war, and then you'll shake the bottle. He got to a new country where he had never lived, and he and his wife had a child with special needs. You'll shake the bottle. His wife would get really upset with him and sometimes yell at him. His children would often not listen and be loud all of the time. One day at his job, he was injured by a machine. He started getting scared he wasn't going to be able to work and provide for his family. Then after 3 weeks of not being able to work because of the injury, he was fired. Shake it again. And again, you can feel free to add any details to the story you want. You can change the story to one that better fits your context. The idea is just to provide a story of someone experiencing hard thing after hard thing. At the end of the story, you'll ask, okay, what will happen if I open this bottle? And everybody will laugh and be like, no, don't open it. They know it will explode everywhere if you cracked it even a little. You'll then explain that stress builds slowly and steadily, and without tools to release it, people eventually emotionally explode. You'll then slowly open the bottle as you describe your goals for helping them learn how to release that pressure and de-stress gradually. So you'll say things like, we want to give you tools to understand your thoughts, your feelings, your body and actions, and you'll open it a little bit. And then we want to give you tools to bring your mind and body back into alignment so you can incorporate things that have happened to you into your story and move along your healing journey. I'll twist it a little bit more to open it. We want to show you stories of other people who went through really hard things so you can see how God walked with them and helped them overcome trials and tragedies. I'll turn it a little slightly. We want to give you tools psychologists and counselors use to help integrate hardships into your story to move forward in emotional health. twist it and open it a little bit more. And we want to show you that you're strong, capable, and able to continue moving through life. And then you can open the bottle the rest of the way. This illustration is widely used in trauma settings because it visually shows cumulative stress and the importance of grounding practices. Okay, a quick note about the activities you lead in class. The activity itself is only half the point. The real value comes afterward during the discussion. So aim for the debrief to take just about as much time, if not more, than the activity. That's the space where participants slow down, reflect on what they've experienced, put their thoughts into words, and hear how others were impacted. The richer the conversation, the deeper the learning. Okay, we'll then move on to the story part of our curriculum. You'll explain to the participants that each week we'll hear a story and we'll ask 4 questions. What did you like? What was hard to understand or accept? How can this story help me emotionally? And who can benefit from hearing this story? These reflective questions are based on narrative healing approaches used in trauma programs. They help participants shift from, why did this happen, to what might help me emotionally right now. Okay, at this stage, you'll either read or play the audio file of the story of Job. After the story, ask each of the questions one by one and give people time to share. Everyone doesn't need to answer every question, but ensure people do have an opportunity to speak if they desire. Sometimes there are things people really don't like about the stories or are having a hard time accepting. That's okay. Your job isn't to convince people that all the details of the story are true. Your job is only to facilitate a discussion around a story to help begin the process of meaning making in what's happening in their lives. We then move to deep breathing. Deep breathing is included in almost every trauma-informed protocol for a reason. When we slow our breath, especially with long exhales, we activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the body's built-in calming switch. Research shows this reduces heart rate, lowers cortisol and adrenaline, and helps shift the brain out of survival mode so people can think more clearly. In trauma recovery, that matters. After frightening or overwhelming events, the body often stays stuck in a state of hyperarousal or fight or flight. Deep breathing gives participants a simple, practical way to signal safety to their nervous system that they are okay. This is why you'll find it in psychological first aid, skills for psychological recovery, EMDR preparation, somatic therapies, and most early intervention models. It's accessible, evidence-based, and one of the fastest ways to restore a sense of control in moments where everything feels chaotic. You'll explain to them how to do deep breathing in this first session and have them take 8 deep breaths together. This first time, we'll take our breaths without words, but starting next week in session 2, we'll add words to both the in-breath and the out-breath. When setting up for the exercise, you'll explain we want to be sitting up straight with our feet on the floor or lying down if you're at home or in a space that's comfortable for reclining. We want to breathe in slowly through our nose for a full count of 8, pause, and then breathe out slowly through our mouths for a full count of 8. Let me give you an example. You want to show them that they want to breathe in slowly during the full 4 count and out slowly during the full 4 count. You don't want to see people do. You want to model using the full 4 seconds to fill in breath and then the full 4 seconds to expel that breath. At the end of session 2, you'll send a deep breathing audio file to the participants so they can follow along an audio recording at home for homework. You'll now hand out the participant packets and briefly review the first page with the group, which is the deep breathing page. This will remind them how to do deep breathing when they're at home practicing. Then you'll move to the stress reduction activities page. You can let them know that all the activities listed here are evidence-informed and intentionally chosen. Each one plays a role in calming the nervous system, reducing overall stress, and helping participants be able to rebuild a sense of stability after overwhelming events. You'll see some of the activities on the page include drinking water, walking, listening to calming music, and a few other simple activities that they can do during the week. You'll explain the structure of the homework is that participants will practice 5 minutes of deep breathing each day and choose one additional activity from the list to complete. They'll mark each completed task in their packet by circling that square or coloring it in so you can review progress the following week. The goal is to complete your entire page of stress reduction activities during the week. Healing doesn't happen only by learning about trauma and its effects. Healing often requires taking action. Sitting in this group and learning is a crucial first step, but the next step is engaging the body and mind in small, consistent practices throughout the week. Research shows that repeated, manageable actions, things that may feel simple or unimportant at first, create a compounding effect over time. These daily habits help the nervous system shift out of survival mode, restore a sense of agency, and build momentum toward healing. For many people, it may take several weeks of doing these exercises before they begin to feel different, but slow, steady changes are a normal and expected part of the healing process. You'll then close the session by asking if anyone has any questions, deciding on where you'll meet next week, and closing in a brief prayer by either you or one of the participants. You might find it helpful as a facilitator to create a group chat with all the members in your group. Here you can text them something encouraging during the week, as well as provide a couple reminders to practice their deep breathing and their other stress reduction exercises if they're able. And that's session 1. The first time you lead each of these sessions, it will probably feel a bit clunky and probably not smooth. I wrote this curriculum, and the first couple times I led groups, it felt a bit clunky. But as you continue leading groups, you'll find a natural pattern and grow more and more comfortable in the material. Press in. And remember, the goal is not perfection, it's love. Just by facilitating these groups, you're going to be a light in dark places. I'll catch you in the next video for session 2.